All right, and we're back with On the Record with Kevin and Tiffany on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, home of Conservative Talk Radio, with our special guest, Reginald Ballard, a.k.a. Bruh Man from the Fifth Flow. All right, Tiffany, the protected classes. Last week we had a big meeting where you were involved in a big meeting with talking with Medicare Part D, talking about the 6 protected classes.
It's the Partnership for Part D Access.
Partnership. All right. So tell us what it is briefly and what are the classes.
So Partnership for Part D Access really is like a conglomeration of advocates and organizations that are watching the 6 protected classes, that are a part of the 6 protected classes, and that are watching to make sure that patients are taken care of with Medicare Part D. Those 6 protected classes include immunosuppressants. And immunosuppressants are what kidney transplant patients use to keep their transplants. Like, they can't survive without immunosuppressants.
Okay. Why is it important that you watch?
It's important that we watch. Now, there's 2 reasons why this is super important to Texas Kidney Foundation. We were one of a small group of organizations, about 13 of us, that when I came into Texas Kidney Foundation and stepped into my calling 6 years ago, immunosuppressants were not covered for the life of the transplant. They weren't covered. They were covered for 5 years. And we were like, this is ridiculous. It's preposterous that's the way it is. And it had been that way, obviously for decades prior. So we went after it, and we passed it in the 116th legislative session in 2020. So we got this passed in December of 2020. So now immunosuppressants for every transplant patient across the United States is covered. And that includes heart transplants, kidney transplants. So we got together and made sure that happened. So that's one of the reasons why we watch closely to make sure that that there are not changes made within Medicare and Medicaid that would affect those immunosuppressants. Because even once legislation is passed and something is fortified or codified, there's still things that can be done without ever passing legislation within Medicaid and Medicare that could limit patients. So we're basically always watching for
CMS could just change the rules in the middle in the middle of the game, right? They can say we're not going to cover these particular medications and have a ripple effect on thousands upon thousands of Americans and their lives by not covering a certain medication, or they do something that causes the copay on the insurance to drive up immunosuppressants. So the price of those 6 protected classes could go up drastically and have a huge impact on people's lives.
And so that is why we keep an eye on what's going on with the 6 protected classes. Well, we wrapped up our week of kidney takeover, Texas Kidney Foundation kidney takeover. That's what I call it.
Is that what we're going to call it? Because social media guys getting the pictures
kidney
ready.
Takeover.
That's why you have that silly thing. Okay.
So we wrapped it up on Thursday with a policy briefing for key stakeholders in the House and the Senate, in the U.S. House and Senate. And it went very well. And so what we discussed was not only the 6 protected classes, specifically immunosuppressants, and how they affect kidney patients, because they don't just use immunosuppressants only for transplant patients, but they're actually used, different ones, for patients who are in stages 2 and 3 and 4, as well as 5. It's not, it depends on your doctor and your regimen. That's where precision medicine comes in. But we talked about that. We discussed AMKD, which is what I have. My family has a rare kidney disease called APOL1 mediated kidney disease, or otherwise known as AMKD. KD. And so what that is a form of kidney disease that is genetic. It's genetically linked. And it's when one has two mutated genetic alleles that are APOL1. And then when you have two, then it boosts up your potential for going into renal failure exponentially.
Okay, so I just almost fell asleep on that explanation. I don't know about you, Reggie, but
shut up.
So why is that important? Because oftentimes, like when you follow athletes, we'll have there'll be a star athlete out there, and 25, 26, and they'll have their kidneys just go out. Is that associated with
Alonzo Mourning?
It could be.
And I think Sean Elliott and Alonzo Mourning had kidney transplants.
Yeah. And see, with APOL1, we can find out, as we can find out at any point, much early on. You can find out when you have kids. You can find out before you have kids. Like we're encouraging all of our family members to get tested, before they have children, so they know what's going on. To get tested while they're young, so they can
right.
Make lifestyle changes. Right. Like there's so much that one can do. And
then that's not the only.
You want to know. You just want to know.
And we talk about that drug because we know it directly has an impact on us. But there's IgA nephropathy. We have several friends.
You mean that disease.
That have that particular disease, right?
Right.
That has an impact on them and the ways that it shows up. Well, there are medications there, but they're also working on additional medications. But just knowing these particular things and being involved with the 6 protected classes, it helps with that.
But making sure that
like stuff I'm on, like is suppressed. I mean, make sure that you don't have no rejections.
Yes.
So, it seemed like when you're taking these medications, you seem like it makes you feel like you don't need them. It's like, I don't need that, man. I'm doing good. I don't. Why should keep taking this? And then I guess if you stop, then you might start seeing the progression.
We don't want you to stop. That's right.
But it's so tempting to like, man, I'm fine. If I just eat right and I probably won't even need this anymore.
Because they work so well. They work so well. We have gotten so good at this. Yeah. They work. The immunosuppressants work well.
Like lowering your immune system. Like for me, I don't get colds and flu like I used to for some reason. And if it's lowering my immune system, I don't know why I don't, because I used to get the flu almost, it never fails. Almost every September, I used to get the flu. Now, the last 3 years since I had the kidney, and the medications, I haven't had the flu. So I don't know if it's going in reverse with me, but I did have a COVID shot. Since I had the COVID shot about 3 years ago, I mean, I don't have the flu no more. I don't really have colds anymore. But they always telling me, you're on them immune suppressants, so wear your mask. And I mean, I don't wear masks all the time, but I don't, I shouldn't say that now. Watch. Next time y'all see me, I'm gonna be around here, man.
Dragging.
What
happened to Reginald?
But this is one of the things that, since getting involved with the foundation, that occurs to me, right, is that we have to be involved in policy and aware of what's going on policy wise, right? So now we track a lot of things related to kidneys and to the policy related. And so for me, this is probably the last 2 years really seeing the direct impact that a policy has on people, or that when you make a policy and it affects people's medications, the sheer panic that patients experience, like, oh my God, this is going to be the impact. And then to have people to downplay and go, oh, it's not going to be that bad. Oh yeah, it is going to be that bad. Because just like you said, while you're taking the medicine, you feel great. You're like, I'm okay, right? But then when you're not able to access the medication, or some change in a policy makes the price go up.
And that's why it's not just that we track policy, but we actually weigh in and comment on policy. We follow it when they make a change, like we saw a diagnostic change.
Yeah, that was a big one.
We saw MolDX make a diagnostic change. And that one change to policy meant that non-invasive tests, that we have this entire swath of transplant patients who receive non-invasive testing. Yep. Depending on the cadence is based on them and their doctor, like how often they take it is based on them and their doctor, but most of them at least quarterly. And it's just another vial of blood on a blood draw they're already taking. Well, MolDX decided, you don't need all of those tests. Now, we tell everybody to be innovative, come up with these tests, come up with ways that we can give better care and save money. These diagnostic tests are exactly that. They're instead of having to do the biopsy, which is it's very invasive. And then here comes somebody, in a cubicle somewhere. I'm just saying that, I don't know. That has decided, what, we can save some money here, or we can do X here, and we're going to make this decision.
No, but you say that jokingly, but that is, just like you said, is made on, I can save X. If we continue, what's the cost savings or what's the cost differential, right? And not looking at what that cost saving, cost differential, as they call it, the impact that has on the lives of real people. Right. Real Americans of every shade, color, and creed. So it's having an impact on their lives.
They made that decision, and literally it affected people immediately. And not one legislative card had to be pulled to do that. Now, what we're having to do on our end is go back and talk to legislators, and we may have to write legislation to rectify it, but they don't. So they can make a decision quickly without any impunity. And in that case, what they did was made the decision and didn't give, like normally you have to do a public announcement so that advocates, real 9944s can come at them about it. Or whoever the industry side of that is, they can team up with us and come and go at it, Because the industry side always comes and teams up with you. Whatever part of industry that's going against that, they'll come and team up with you.
But here's the deal, though, right? I always say we never have, because I have a young relative friend of ours, right? We're not going to say anything loud, who's idealistic, right? Who always says they want the perfect solution. They want all sides to be morally right and everything.
Who is he talking about?
Don't be calling names out. But it's never that way. I always tell Tiffany, we have the choice between and damn, they suck, right? So we gotta, that's the continuum. It's never a pure person.
I always like to think of it as we have,
you're going to say it fancy.
I read a lot of different people, but I always like to think of it as, sometimes you have the choice between okay or kind of bad and really bad. Really bad. Like, this is gonna turn out to be total trash. But you don't have the good and evil that we all were raised with. Oh, it's either a great choice or this terrible thing here. So, you can easily see that it's good or evil. No, there's a whole lot of gray that you're trying to deal with, and you have to navigate that. So and that is one of the reasons why I'm passionate. I know exactly what it is I came to get, which is our health back and transparency in this foggy little system that we have right now. And I do steamroll. I do exactly that.
You need to look at the camera. Don't be looking at me with that hard look.
I do steamroll.
Don't be steamrolling me.
I do steamroll. That's exactly what I do.
Drive-bys.
But it is often that's what it is. You've either got and then You know that you're choosing.
But for us,
between.
that's often between the partners that we choose, right? A lot of our partners, like when I met Reg, I was like, oh my God, this guy's real,
yes.
right? And he has, and, you know, and he appeals to people, and people really like him and identify with him.
Well, I'm not talking about
he's a good
partners.
person, but I'm saying
because with partners, we're very adamant about only choosing the best partners.
Well, hold on, you cut me off, so hold on real quick. So you gave me that mean look, and but from my view, right? From my view, on the partners that we choose, when you find people like Reg, when we find people like Jay Rome. Did I say his name right?
Jazz Rome.
Jazz Rome. Is that his stage name?
Hey, Jazz Rome.
Is that his stage name or real name?
I don't know.
Oh, no. Okay.
I don't know.
But when you find people like that who are really authentic and who really care about people and want to help other people and prevent them from going through what they were through, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe, you know, that we met people like that. That's awesome to me. But then oftentimes when we're working with different groups and stuff, sometimes it feels like we feel okay, here's the angle that they have on this, which happens to align with where we want to go. Yeah. Right. So you're constantly having to monitor that because that's the problem because that's often the problem that organizations get co-opted by the industry, as you call it, right? And we always
is an industry.
We always are very, very motivated to keep that from being co-opted, right? Because we still want to have an authentically patient-centered voice, right? Because we got a series of calls like last week from a few people from Louisiana, right? And wonderful people, right? Asking about what options and where to find data and information. And we're helping them find the information. And we're speaking to them in clear patient-oriented way. And then at the end of the call, the lady says, you know, you're the first person who's explained it to me that clearly and pointed me in the right directions that clearly, right? And for me, right, that's important as well, is with patients, and then oftentimes with policymakers don't have it clear either. I'm like, you know, if you make this decision, it's going to impact this many people. It's going to have this huge impact, right? No matter what the dollars and cents are, right? But on just the quality of their lives. Right. Yeah. And so I get kind of preachery, right? Because I have this interaction when you can pass this bill that is going to benefit non-Americans and money isn't even questioned. It's not even a question about it, right? But then we have Americans here and you can't make simple policies that are going to benefit. And oftentimes it's because they don't have clarity about what the impact is going to be. Right. And so that's one of the things I think we bring is clarity because we're seeing it from ground level with the patients. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing there. And I think often the thing that you kind of undersell sometimes, Tiffany, about what we do and about what you do, right? Because is that we bring clarity and it's a patient-centered, it's from a patient perspective, right? Because what I see oftentimes is that everything is from a doctor's perspective. Yeah. How can we motivate, incentivize, and pay the doctor? How can we motivate and incentivize an industry to come up with medications and it's always about the treatment, never the prevention. And there's got to be a balance between that. And I think for me personally, the only way to bring about that balance is one, keep an eye on the policymakers and the policies that they make. And two, to educate people in our neighborhoods and everything and in our immediate circle, educate them about the options and what's available. Right? Because if you really just from the average person on the street, they don't know that there's a medication that could possibly slow down the progression of kidney disease. They're like, hey, my mama had it. My grandmother had it. I'm going to get it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the thing. And I think that's why it's important that we continue to do things, that other people continue to do things from a patient-centered view. Right? Everybody else has enough representation. Oftentimes patients don't have, not oftentimes.
Industry has enough representation.
And we don't have enough representation.
Yeah. We don't have enough non-industry influenced representation. I would agree with that, right? Because when people are, you know, when my paycheck is being paid by dialysis, I'm not going to say too much against dialysis. I'm not going to criticize or bring up question marks about that. When my paycheck is being paid by diagnostics, I'm not going to question or bring up question marks about that. When my paycheck is being paid by the university that's coming up with the latest, greatest, whatever study, or by clinical trials, then I'm not going to say anything about clinical trials, against clinical trials.
This is like the medications. It's like my wife said the other day, she was talking to this nurse at one of her doctor's offices, and she said that, when these pharmaceuticals come in there and they pushing their medications for the doctors, and the doctors don't sell so many of they push these different medications on you, then you start getting blacklisted by these companies, like, well, we're not gonna, deal with this doctor no more. And so they give you these medicines that sometimes you might not even need, but the ones that you might need, they might not push that on you. They might push the ones on you that these companies giving them money, kickbacks and stuff. So yeah.
And that's the thing, like you have to have people like us who are not being paid by anything or anyone. Right. To, we're not in Blah's, a contract with them to be in all their commercials.
If you keep talking like this, don't worry about it. We ain't gonna have a big
I'm not saying that people cannot sponsor something that you're doing. I'm talking about contracts that folks have with these different places.
That make you have to make a decision. That make you have to make an immoral decision type thing.
And you've got to have advocates who will say, there are options. Here are your transplant options. You're not, you're not going to tell me not to tell people about paired donation.
Well, see, this is I got a big argument today. I've been hanging out with you too much because I've been arguing with people left and right, Tiffany.
Tiffany, sunshine. No,
is that oftentimes we have a big project that's going on in here in Texas where we're doing a challenge for living donations for kidneys, right? Which a lot of organizations...
A statewide challenge.
Yeah, but a statewide challenge. But a lot of organizations make these type of challenges, right? And they don't follow through. But we're coming through with some different follow through that's going to be coming out probably middle of second quarter to really help and equip people, right? And so I'm talking with someone, Ernest, trying to understand the process, right? And I hear the common language. I hear this language over and over, and I see it in the literature. Modality. It's just another modality of treatment. And I'm like, okay, where did you get this consultant phrase from? It sounds straight from a consultant phrase, right? And and so they say, hey, this person was telling me, they said, hey, dialysis is just as valid and good of a treatment as transplantation. Right. I was like, you don't know too many people who went from dialysis to transplantation. They will tell you something different. Right. So I'm listening, and they're giving you the pros and the cons of transplantation versus the pros and the cons of dialysis. Right. And I'm like, hey, that's wonderful. But let me give you this pro and con. Right. The con is, right, 60% of the people in the first 5 years, right? And it ranges from each year to year. 50 to 60% of the people within the first 5 years of dialysis die. I mean, if I'm making that right there, I'm going to go with transplantation with a living donor. And so we're talking about that, right? And they're giving the pros and the cons of that and just saying it's just another modality of treatment. And that's the okie doke on the downplay. They say, hey, it's just as valid a form of treatment. And you'll see that all in the literature. And it wasn't there before, in the last 14, 15 years. Before, dialysis was simply seen as a transition. So like, here's a bookmark. We're going to put you here till we go find you a kidney, right? And now with living donors, the National Kidney Registry, that process can be sped up. But oftentimes patients are kept in ignorance by not being told what the valid options are. Sometimes what happens is you go to a particular transplant center, they can't give, within their system, they're not going to be able to help you, or the likelihood of you being helped is extremely low. And they oftentimes know that there's another transplant center somewhere else in the state of Texas or in the or in another state that can help you. And they will not tell you about that information.
Right up the freeway.
And they won't try to push you over there. to that information. And for me, that is the importance of why we need advocates and we need people who present it from a patient perspective and a neighbor's perspective of, if you were my mother, if you were my brother, would I do that to you? No, you wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do it. I'd say, hey, we're going to move you over here.
That's why we get calls now, because people do know that we, after 7 years of this, then people have seen me raise heaven on people in a whole lot of different situations. I always say this, I'm raising heaven. I'm not raising hell. All the hell you have that you try to throw at kidney patients, know that I'm going to put it down when I raise my heaven on you. Well, anyway, they've seen us do that. So they call us from different states, the surrounding states. And that's what we hear over and over again. We hear people who have high antibodies. That's a problem that exists in kidney transplant patients. Well, there are certain programs that deal with high antibodies. But instead of telling somebody, hey, you have high antibodies, we don't. Our program does not deal with that. Our transplant program doesn't. But this transplant program over here, they do. And these 4 over here, we have 5 in Texas that deal with high antibodies. Go see one of those 5. Instead of doing that, they simply tell them you have high antibodies, so you have like a 2% chance of getting, or whatever percentage they're throwing out at them, of getting a transplant.
Yeah, but they're only telling you at their local center.
But what needs to be prefaced on the end of that statement, in our program, because we don't deal with high antibodies, go over here and see what they have to say. You don't have to give them any unknown directives. Just go over here and see what they have to say. But again, you run into all the smoke screen when there could just be transparency. How about a little transparency, people?
Transparency in plain English.
Transparency and clarity.
Yeah.
All right, Reg, you got anything to add to that? Because we're at the top of the hour.
No, man, that's it. It's just, it's the simple thing of everything that we talk about. The most simple thing is getting the word out.
That's right.
Getting the word out. That's it. If we can get the word out, then that'll alleviate at least about 70% of what we're trying to, get across. Because a lot of people don't know the information that you guys put out there, because about the transplantation screening, early screening, and all the different ways to slow down the progression. We don't even think about stuff like that. The only thing that we pretty much think about is high blood pressure. Maybe you got to keep the pressure down, but you don't know that the high blood pressure can cause the kidney disease. You don't know that you can slow the progression down of your body deteriorating on you. But the simple thing is getting the word out.
That's a great spot to end. You've been listening to On the Record with Kevin and Tiffany on 9:30 a.m., home of Conservative Talk Radio.